So from the time of Halloween all the way to Valentine's Day, people are spending more money than they actually have or than they should have. And then they spend the remaining of that time after Valentine's Day trying to incorporate ways of making money or trying to save money until they get to the summer, to which they then begin to spend a little bit more money again. And then here comes Halloween once again. And it's a repetitive cycle. And one of the reasons why we continuously have these repetitive cycles because we do not understand the 5 laws of gold as told in The Richest Man in Babylon, told by Arcad to his son Namasir. So we're going to break that down for just a moment so that you guys can have a good understanding of it as you move forward. We just passed the Christmas holiday and we're moving towards the new year. Many people have already spent way more money than they should have. We're going to break down things so that you can start getting yourself in a mindset so that when it comes to next year, you have the money in excess, not that you're sitting here hoping and wishing and praying and looking for some quick, fast way to make money so that you can then enjoy these holiday time frames, whichever ones you celebrate or participate in, to be able to have fun and joy in your life. So first, let me introduce myself. All those who don't know me, I am Coach Renz. You will find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Blog Talk Radio, and many other formats. I look forward to being here with you guys. Go ahead, if you find me for the first time and you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. If you're on my Patreon channel, then of course you're going to get more extended information on the 5 laws of gold and the entire book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And you are also going to get more in-depth things based on our spiritual studies and alchemy and things like that as well in Tantra. So welcome everybody. I spent a lifetime of studying, a lifetime of making good and bad decisions, and I am here to impart that wisdom that I've learned over these decades to you. So the 5 laws of gold, what are they? First, let me give you a little breakdown of where this comes from. So the Richest Man in Babylon are based on tablets, over 20,000 tablets that was found in Baghdad and found in Iraq, and they were written in cuneiform. And a lot of these rules and laws talks about how to build wealth. And this information had originally been passed down from generation to generation, family to family, held in tight secrecy until around the 1800s, when the tablets were rediscovered and these tablets were put out there and people began to be able to have access to them. But still, it remains something that the rich had, or something that those in power had, or those at a high education level had. And it skipped the generations of people who were mainline people, middle class people, poor people. But these laws are not so difficult to understand that people could not have figured them out on their own. People have had enough experiences in business and different economies to figure these out on their own. So we're going to do this, figure this out today. All right. So what you have in the backdrop of this story, you have Arcad and he has his son Namasir. Now, usually in their time frame, the father passes away, the oldest son inherits everything. Arcad didn't like that. He felt like his son needed to learn how to make money in order to be worthy to inherit the wealth of the richest man in Babylon. He told him if he doesn't, the money will be given away to charities, given away to the priests, given away to different people, land given to poor people. Everything will be given away if he did not succeed in this task. And what was his task? His father gave him a bag of Babylonian gold, and he gave him the tablets of the 5 laws of gold. And then he told him, go off to another town, and in 10 years come back and report your economic up or down. Right? So Namasir goes off. He goes off to Nineveh, and upon 10 years he returns to his father, and he expresses to his father. He says he went away. And long story short, he loses all his money. Has to sell his slave. He has to sell his camel, his horses, and finds himself destitute and having to work a job. In working the job, he rediscovers the 5 laws of gold, the tablets his father had given him, and started to apply those. And over the course of the next 9 years of applying the 5 laws of gold, Namasir becomes one of the richest men in Nineveh. And when he returns to his father, he gives him 1 bag of gold Nineveh gold to replace the Baghdad gold that his father had gave him. Babylonian gold that his father had given him. And then he gives him 2 additional bags of gold for the value of the wisdom that was on the tablets. 2 bags of gold for the value of the wisdom, indicating that the gold, that the wisdom has more value than the actual bag of gold. Now, to many people, if somebody offered you the wisdom to make $1 million or $1 million, many of you would choose $1 million and not understand that the value of how to make $1 million has greater value than the million. Because if I gave you $1 million today, you will lose it in 10 years. But if I gave you the wisdom to build and make $1 million, you apply it in 10 years, you can make the $1 million liquid cash in your bank. So that is what Namasir understood. And those are the things we're going to talk about today. Go over them briefly and break them down into a format that you can understand it today. Now, I do want to say this. The idea of giving your child, teaching your children how to earn is not an old idea. I know many of you don't like the Rothschilds, and I get it. But this is what Mayor Rothschild did with his sons, and for generation after generation, the Rothschilds continued this practice. They still continue this practice. Whereas the Vanderbilts, who used to be the richest family in the world, did not practice this. And to this day, there are only 2 Vanderbilts who are wealthy. And those 2 Vanderbilts became wealthy on their own, not because they inherited money. Because 92 years after Vanderbilt passed, there was not one millionaire in the Vanderbilt family. Not one millionaire in the Vanderbilt family. That would be like in 192 years, there's not one Gates that is wealthy. Not one Gates. Not one Buffett that is wealthy. Not one Branson that is wealthy. Not one Damon John's kids are not wealthy. You know, that would be like Michael Jordan's kids not being, his great grandkids not being wealthy based on what the initial person was able to create. If Oprah had children, it would be her descendants not being wealthy after what all she's created. The lady, I keep forgetting her name, I think it's Kathy something, who started Radio 1. If her children's children are not wealthy, it is because the lessons weren't passed down. Oftentimes by the 4th generation, they're no longer wealthy because the lessons haven't been passed down. So let's learn these lessons so that you can build wealth, or you're already in a good position. You come from a family that has wealth and you don't see that you're increasing that wealth. Let us see how you can learn to change that. So the first rule, and I'm going to read it exactly how it's written in the 5 laws of gold, and we'll break it down into today's terminology. The first rule is gold cometh gladly and increasingly, and gold cometh gladly and in increasing quantities to any man who will put by no less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. 1/10. If you're part of my financial alchemy program, or you come to the financial alchemy, the Alchemy of Life tour, or we do it online, you will understand one of the biggest things that I'm a proponent of is 10% of what you earn is yours to keep. 10% of what you earn, you should be putting into an investment account. 10% of what you earn, you should be setting aside to build and start that business. 10% of what you earn is what you should always be putting aside. Think about it like this. If you put 10% of what you earn aside into an investment, or put it somewhere where it earns interest, in 10 years you will have a minimum of what you earn in a year. So if you earn $50,000 in a year, in 10 years you will have saved $50,000 just on a straight up savings. $50,000, depending upon what kind of account it is in. There's of course compounding interest. Now, is that 50,000 going to turn into $1 million in 10 years? That 10% going to turn to $1 million based on compounding interest? No, it's not. At 10% of what you earn, which if you earn $50,000 a year is $5,000 a year, can you put that into something that's going to be earning 12, 18, 20%? Only if you live and breathe the stock market and really know how to anticipate awareness and the flow of people, and really study companies and economies. Then maybe you can earn 12, 18%. And if you're doing that, you should be opening up your own financial management company if you're doing that. Most stockbrokers, most fund accounts don't generate those kinds of numbers. But if you put it into, there are certain funds that are doing 10%, 12%. You can put it in there for 10 years and let that 10%, 12% compound over that time frame. You just have to be aware of penalties for taking it out, fees for taking it out, fees for moving around, fees and fees and fees, and a whole bunch of fees. Or you can take that $50,000, put that into someone else's business who you trusted, but we're gonna get it now. Or put that into your own business. We're gonna get into that. But first thing is, and it is a wise saying that comes from like the 1920s, 30s. I don't know who said it, but they said that if a man doesn't have it within him to save, then he doesn't have it within him to become wealthy. You have to be able to save this 10%. 10% of what you're earning is yours to keep. If you are leveraged at 100% of your income to pay your bills, then that means that you have budgeting issues, you have lifestyle issues. Reduce your lifestyle, reduce your budget, or figure out, or go get you another job. Watch my video. I'll post it up here later on the gig economy towards the end of this video. You need to go do something to change your financial picture if that's your situation. The second rule of gold: gold laboreth diligently and contently for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. These people come from an agrarian state, so that's why they got flocks of fields. Okay, flocks in the field. But understand, we still live in the same type of system today. If you don't put your money into, the money will grow when you put it into wise investments. Maybe you're afraid of business. Maybe you're afraid of becoming an entrepreneur. Maybe you don't want to be one. Maybe you're 20 years old and you're looking at, I want to retire at 60. So maybe you go with a Vanguard fund or a Magellan fund or something like that that's earning you 7-8% per annual, but you diligently put in at minimum 10% of what you earn. And by the time you retire, you might have $1 million in there, right? In 40, 50 years, you might have $1 million in there, depending upon how the markets go. You may have that. So you might be safe like that. You may want to put it into IRAs, Roth IRAs. You may be safe like that. I wouldn't, but you might. You might like need something that's backed by the government and believe that this government is going to be here for the next 100 years. So that's maybe what you put your money. Be aware that the way the state of health is, of course, we have a generation that's going to be filled with diabetes and everything like that. But there's a generation coming, and you may be in it, where people are going to live a lot longer. Medical science is increasing. You're going to live a lot longer. So having $1 million at 60 may not be enough to last you another 60 years. So you have to contemplate those things. So you want to invest your money wisely. You want to find good work for your money. You don't want to put your money just under the mattress. That's not good work for your money. You need to send your money out, and it needs to bring back other money so that you can reinvest all of it. Rule number 3: gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. I made a lot of mistakes in my youth when it came to starting businesses and running businesses because I did not have a coach. I did not have a mentor. I did not have somebody that could guide me in the handling of my business and the handling of the funds that the business brought in. I was, when my first business, my first legit business after the Marine Corps was bringing in $8,000 a month that I could put in my pocket. In 1999, I'm putting $8,000 a month in my pocket. I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't realize that I need to only take about $4,000 and reinvest the other $4,000. I didn't think about those things. I didn't think about, well, I did want to expand into other malls, but I made a stupid emotional decision. And I didn't have that wise counsel to say that, hey, you're making a stupid emotional decision. And you have to build your business so that it becomes, that hedge of protection around you, as people like to say. I didn't do that. I wasn't listening to wise counsel. I didn't have wise counseling. I didn't grow up with parents who knew how to build a business. I mean, my grandfather knew how to hustle and build a business. My father had a business, but they didn't know how to build empires. They really built jobs for themselves. And that was my teachings of just watching them from afar. My grandfather died when I was 14. I didn't grow up with my father. I really didn't get to know him until I was in my mid-20s. So it's not like I grew up with these things. So when I went out there, I was on my own. I didn't really start learning until I met a man named Thomas Gentry in the around 2003 that I started learning how to build. And even in that, I had to unravel a lot of misguided teachings. And so having wise counsel in the handling of money is very vital to your growth. You know, some of these investment firms, they're not wise counsel. They're not wise counsel at all. Your 401ks is not wise counsel at all. If it starts with a 4, it's for the government. It's not a good place to put your money. All right, number 4, gold slip away from the man who invested in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in his keeping. In the story, Namasir, he didn't know a lot about bronze gates, but he was told, a man who had been watching him save his 10% every year, saw him saving his 10%, said, you know what, young man, young Padawan, we are going to buy, the Nineveh is building these huge walls, and they're going to need bronze for the gates. I got a crew, we're investing, we're going up into this other town, we're going to buy all this other country, actually, we're going to buy all this bronze, so that when it's time for the bronze gate to be built, we'll have all the bronze, and we can sell it for a good price. But even if the king doesn't buy the bronze from us, we can then sell it to all the blacksmiths. See, they had a contingency plan in case plan A didn't work, of how they can still move this bronze to make money. And so he got down with them. He didn't know about it, but he was working with gentlemen who did know about it. You got to invest your money in business that you know about, you've studied, researched, and now you know about it, or you're investing in someone else's business who know what they are doing, right? So I had a gentleman who wanted to invest in what I do. You know, he owns a lawn company. He's very successful in his lawn company. He was not investing in this company, he's investing in me. But we had some differences of how we see the company growing, so he couldn't invest with me. But what I'm saying is this, he sought out me because he recognized the opportunity, right? He recognized that he can make some money in an industry he wasn't familiar with, but he was familiar with me, and he knew I know the industry. I went through, trust me, at that time frame, I had just finished going through a lot of huge mistakes that cost me up around $300,000. So I was well versed in how to screw up and what not to do. I learned that lesson the hard way in this business, because those who are in this business at the time frame in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, they were not talking to you. They would not give you guidance. They would not tell you the pitfalls of this industry. They were closed in. So I had to study and figure it out as I go. It would have been better if I had that ability to learn from these people, or learn from somebody in the food industry more about how the food industry worked. I should have done more due diligence to talk to people who were in this industry, but I didn't, and I learned some hard mistakes. But through that, another gentleman recognized what I learned and was ready to invest in this company so that he could benefit from my mistake, from the wisdom that I've now acquired. So, but when you just invest, like I said in a video recently, that you want to open up a Jamaican restaurant, but there's 5 Jamaican restaurants already within 1 mile, 1 mile of the place you want to put it. That's an unwise investment. But instead, there's an area of town where there's none. There's an area of town where there's one. Go there. It doesn't matter that it's close to your house. Who cares about where you live? It's where business is being done. Where can you best do business, right? That's what you should. That's how you should be doing. I'm coaching a young lady now, and it's like, you got to be on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. You gotta content, because it's an educational piece to it. You got to get that content out. You got to overwhelm people with your knowledge base. Show them that you're the subject matter expert, so that people will gain that trust and confidence in you, and then they will become your customers. I can tell her that because I've experienced that. And I'm making these videos, it's about giving you guys content, and more content, so that you understand where my breadth of knowledge is. And I'm not saying I know everything, but so that you understand my breadth of knowledge, so that when I say I'm having the Alchemy of Life tour, we're doing it as a webinar, we're doing it in this city, that you will say, okay, I know Coach Renz knows what he's talking about. So she has to create that for herself in her particular industry. You have to create that for yourself in your particular industry, whatever it is that you desire to do. Because like I said, after February, you're going to be looking down the barrel of the debt you've created for yourself, and you don't want that to happen every year. You want to get out of that vicious cycle. So that was number 4. So you want to be business that you're familiar with, or with people who are familiar with that business. The last law is gold flees the man who would force it into impossible earnings, or who would follow the allure and advice of tricksters and scammers, or who would trust it in his own inexperience and romantic desires in investment. These are the gamblers. These are the ones who get caught up in the multitude of network marketing companies that 98% of the people fail in. These are the people who are looking to create passive income and just live on the beach and make money, but they want to do it next year. They want to do it in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. When if you are able to do that in 10 years, you're an overnight success. 10 years, you're an overnight success. These are those people who fall into that. Gold will flee you. You've constantly been hopping from one company to the next company, one quick money-making scheme for the next quick money-making scheme. I tell you guys to join my Financial Alchemy program to fix your credit, but there's another company out there that's a network marketing company. It's like $29 a month, and get 200 points raised in your credit score, and then all you got to do is recruit 3 more people and recruit 3 more people. So is it about fixing your credit score, or is it about recruiting more people and make $200 a month and get 200 points on your credit score? It's like, oh, we're going to show you this nice shiny thing, but if you saw a video I did a long time ago, I talked about the way you trap a monkey is that you put a shiny thing inside of a trap. The monkey can easily get his hand in. You can easily get into the scam. But then once the monkey closes his fist, he can't pull his hands out. But in order to be free, all he has to do is let go of that shiny thing. That shiny thing has no value. Going to all these meetings have no value. If you're not making money, then there's no value in it. If you're not growing in it, there's no value in it. Now, if you're saying that, hey, I understand that this network marketing thing is about recruiting and getting more people, and I'm in it for the next 10 years. I'm going to grind it for the next 10 years. The only thing about that is that network marketing companies usually don't have a life that lasts that long. Not a life of growth where it lasts that long. They usually last 5, 7, maybe 10 years, and they're done. They start diminishing, and there's the new hot thing that's coming up. It's just like the yogurt industry. Yogurt will have this flash. In the 70s, it flashed. Everybody wanted yogurt, and it died. And then in the late 80s, it flashed again through the early 90s, and it died. And then in the late 2000 to 2009, 2008, 2009, it flashed up again, and then it died. Cupcakes flash, and then it dies. These things flash and they die, which is why when I was doing my research about the gourmet popcorn industry, I was like, nope, it's been riding every economy since 1939. I'm good. I like that. I like that. I got out of the fitness industry because it started having its flashes and dying, so I look at things, you got to look at things for what's the long-term plan. If you can't save, if I challenge you to save 10% of what you earn for the next 10 years, can you do it? Can you do it? Can you have a long-term plan of investing for the next 10 years? If you want to start a business, you can't say that I'm going to give this business 3 years. No, you got to give that business 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. If you truly, truly, truly want to be an entrepreneur. I'll admit, I saw the fitness industry the way it was going. I couldn't duplicate myself. Everybody wanted to train with me. I couldn't get the people to train with my trainers. And I couldn't compete with the big gyms. And I wasn't having fun. So I left that industry. This one, I've been going gangbusters at it ever since 2011, really. Since 2011. I have no intentions of getting out of this unless when I got thousands of stores and somebody come with that big $100 billion check in about 30, 40 years, then sure, 30, 40 years, $100 billion check or more, 200 billion, 300 billion, depending on what the economy is looking like in 30 years, I'm good then. But for now, people are like, you got to get into the airport. You got to put one here. You got to do this online. You got to, and all this advice from people who don't know how to run a business. All this advice from people who are trying to rush me into doing this or that and the third because they're trying to you need to make money now. You got to make all this money now. You got to make all this money now. You guys know I've lived in the back of my store for 3 years, not this particular one, but for 3 years I lived in the back of one of my stores, because I'm willing to do that in order to build a business. I'm willing to sacrifice that. I don't have any romantic desires about my business, no romantic fantasies about how business works. Business is a long-term goal, a long-term plan. This company may not become a billion-dollar company until my son has taken over 10, 20 years from now. You know, my daughters have come in and they've taken over 10, 20 years from now. They've helped me build it. And maybe in 20 years, it becomes a $1,000,000, multi-million-dollar company. Even if it took that, if we're slugging it out, just making a few, you know, being able to put 40, 50, 60 to $80,000 a year in my pocket, and the company is only making $300,000, $400,000 a year, that may be, if that's what it is, and if it takes building slowly. You know, I got this store now, and then maybe it takes me 2 years to open another store. Then maybe it takes me 2 more years to open another store. If it goes at that pace, then I'm willing to go through it at that pace. I'm not looking for the impossible gains, right? But many times you guys are looking for impossible gains on your money. You're saying that next year you're going to be financially free and your credit's going to be fixed. It may take 6 months to fix your credit. It may take a year to fix your credit, depending on what's going on with your credit. So expecting these impossible gains is not realistic. You have to look at things how they actually flow. So don't expect impossible gains on your investments, because they're not there. They're just not there. Now, as far as going forward, we are looking at doing the Alchemy Tour of Life, possibly as a webinar, possibly still coming to your cities. It's all going to be relative to what the market says. Just like in what I was just talking about, the market determines whether or not something is desired or not, whether it's good or if the people want it. And sometimes the market is decided based on how you market it, how you advertise it, how you put it out there, what's your brand. So there's a lot that goes into these kinds of things. And as you get ready to build your financial future, you have to be willing to look at all these things and learn all these things. I'm in my 40s and I'm still learning. I'm 47 and I still have, but I recognize, one, I still have the patience to say that I can be wealthy at 67, right? I don't have to be wealthy right now. I can be wealthy at 67, because at 67, I still got decades and decades and decades and decades of life left that I can enjoy, a good life left, you know, so I can still enjoy it. Of course, it'd been great if I learned all these things when I was in my teens or I was in my 20s, but I didn't. And that's just what it is. This is why my children are learning these things now. This is why I take my children to the bank and I set their credit up in piggyback situations with my own, and set them up on I can't even think of it. The loans that I told you guys about Navy Federal. But you set them up. So I want you guys to learn these things so you can set up your family, set up your kids, create that generational wealth that they're always talking about, but that seems to be so elusive to you. So join me for the Alchemy Tour of Life. Continue to subscribe to this channel. Hit that button to subscribe. And then join me on Patreon. Join me on Patreon. I know some of you guys got mad at me on Patreon. You fallen off because I haven't been putting as many videos out on Patreon that are separate from every other video. But that ends today. All right. Other versions of this video and other videos will be on Patreon by tomorrow. And more will continue. So y'all have a great day. Remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.